The door was open, just a crack, but I swear, I saw a hand pull it shut. I should have left right then. I was staying with my uncle in his village for the school holidays. His house was old, built long before my father was even born. It smelled like dust and firewood, and the walls had deep cracks like veins running through them. It was the kind of house that kept secrets. There were 5 rooms inside. 4 of them were used by the family. The last room on the left door was always locked. Nobody talked about it. Not even the children played near it. I asked my cousin Toby why. He only shook his head. "Just don't go near it," he muttered. That night I couldn't sleep. The air was thick, too quiet. Then I heard it. Light footsteps dragging, like someone was walking with only one shoe. They stopped right outside my door. I held my breath. Then came the whisper, a voice I didn't know, weak but clear. "Let me out." I pulled my blanket over my head. My heart was hammering. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was the wind. But the next night, I heard it again. "Let me out." The whisper came from the last room on the left. The next morning, I finally asked my uncle about it. His face changed. He looked tired. "That room belongs to someone who is not here anymore," he said. I didn't ask any more questions. But that night, curiosity got the better of me. I crept out of bed and tiptoed to the door. The handle was cold. My fingers barely brushed it when, bang, something slammed against the door from the inside. I ran back to my room and shut the door. I didn't sleep. By morning, my uncle knew. He didn't scold me. He just sighed. "Now it knows you've seen it," he said. That was the last night I spent in that house. That same day, my uncle sent me back to the city. He didn't explain. He just told me to pack my bag. I didn't argue. When I got home, my mother looked at me strangely. She touched my forehead, as if checking for a fever. "You look different," she said. I didn't feel different, just tired, just cold, in a way that had nothing to do with the weather. The first night back, I thought I was safe. I told myself I had left whatever was in that room behind. But at exactly midnight, I woke up. Something was wrong. The air felt heavy, like the walls were pressing in. My room was dark, but in the corner, just barely visible, I saw it. A shadow, a shape that didn't belong. It was standing, watching. Then the whisper, "You should have let me out." I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. Then the shadow took a step forward. I must have passed out, because the next thing I remember was my mother shaking me awake in the morning. She said I had been burning with fever, talking in my sleep. She looked worried. "You kept saying, 'Don't open the door.'" I didn't go back to my uncle's house after that. I never asked about the room again. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear the whisper, and I never sleep with my door open. Months passed, and life went back to normal, mostly. But some things had changed. I stopped staying up late. I kept my room locked at night. I avoided dark corners, reflections, and anything that felt off. But the whispers followed me. They weren't every night. Sometimes weeks would go by, and I'd think, maybe it's over. Maybe I imagined it. Then, out of nowhere, I'd wake up at 12 a.m. on the dot, heart pounding, and I'd hear it. "You should have let me out." It was never loud, never angry, just patient. One evening, my mother sent me to buy something from the small shop down the street. It was already getting dark, but I didn't argue. I hurried, keeping my head down, walking fast. But halfway there, I felt it. That heavy feeling, like the air had thickened around me. I glanced up. At the end of the road, standing beneath the only streetlight, was a figure, not moving, not talking, just standing. Too far to see clearly, but I knew. The shape, the height, the way it stood slightly off, like it didn't belong. I turned around and walked back home, forcing myself not to run. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that thing under the streetlight. Was it real? Was my mind playing tricks on me? At 12 a.m., I found out. I woke up, but I wasn't in my bed. I was standing in front of my bedroom door. My hand was on the handle. I didn't remember getting up. I didn't remember walking. But I was this close to opening the door. And right on the other side, so close I could feel its breath, was the whisper, "Let me in." I pulled my hand away and ran back to my bed, hiding under the blanket like a child. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. I didn't sleep again that night, or the next, or the one after that. The thing in the last room on the left, it had followed me, and I had no idea what it wanted after that. Every night, I forced myself to stay awake until I was too exhausted to fight it anymore. But even then, I never slept deeply, because I knew if I let my guard down, I might wake up somewhere I shouldn't be. Then one night, it got worse. I had dozed off without meaning to. The room was quiet still. Then something clicked, like a door unlocking. I snapped awake. My bedroom door was open, wide open, and standing in the doorway, half in shadow, half in the dim moonlight, was the thing from the last room on the left. It wasn't just a shadow this time. It had shape now, too tall, too thin. Its arms hung too long, almost reaching the floor, and its head tilted, unnatural, like it was listening. I wanted to move, to scream, to do something, but I couldn't. It stepped inside, slowly. Then it spoke, in that same whisper. "You should have let me out." I finally found my voice. "Go away," I choked out. It tilted its head more. Then it smiled. I don't remember what happened next. I must have blacked out, because when I woke up, it was morning. My door was closed again, but I wasn't in my bed. I was lying on the floor, right in front of my door, my hand stretched toward the handle, like I had been trying to open it. That was the moment I knew I had to do something, because whatever had followed me from my uncle's house, it wasn't just waiting anymore, it was getting closer. I told my mother everything. I expected her to laugh, to tell me I was just dreaming, but she didn't. She listened. And when I finished, she just sat there, thinking. Then she said, "We need to go see someone." That same evening, she took me to an old woman in the next compound, Mama Neka. She was the kind of elder everyone respected, but never spoke about too much. People went to her when things weren't normal. She didn't ask many questions. She just looked at me for a long time, like she was seeing something else. Then she asked one thing. "Did you open the door?" I shook my head. "Did it touch you?" I swallowed hard. "No." She nodded slowly. "Then there's still time." She made me sit on a mat while she brought out a bowl of water and whispered something over it. Then she took some white chalk and drew a mark on my forehead, my wrists and my feet. She looked at my mother. "Your son stepped into something that was never meant for him." My mother's face tightened. "What do we do?" Mama Nika sighed. "He's looking for a way in. That room, it was its home. When he paid attention to it, it noticed him. And now, it follows." I felt sick. I never even stepped inside, yet it had still followed me. She looked at me again. "It hasn't fully crossed into your world yet, but it's trying. You must never answer it, never acknowledge it, and most importantly," she leaned in, "never, ever open a door for it." She gave my mother something, small, wrapped in a cloth. "Burn this in his room, and keep salt by the door at night. We did everything she said. That night I waited. Midnight came. The air was heavy, thick with something I couldn't see. Then, knock, knock, slow, deliberate. My breath caught in my throat. Then the whisper, "Let me in." I squeezed my eyes shut. My hands clenched the blanket. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The knocking came again. Then, nothing. Silence. The air felt lighter. The weight was gone. I stayed awake until morning. It never came back after that night. Even now, years later, I don't know what it really was. But I know one thing. If you ever find yourself in an old house and there's a room no one talks about, never pay attention to it. And whatever you do, never open the door.